Picture a room with two chairs. One chair is Tucker Carlson, the other chair is Chris Cuomo. Both of them proceed to have a 2-hour-long conversation that isn't full of insults, rather it's cordial, full of vulnerability, and truth-seeking.
I just want to thank you. That was like the most interesting conversation I've had in a long time, and I sincerely enjoyed it.
And in this video, we're going to look at the communication behind this conversation. What techniques and tactics set this conversation apart from being insults hurled at one another, and rather a substantial conversation that changed the tide for the both of them. Let's hop into it. The conversation has a casual feel. It takes place in Tucker's home. We'll go through the conversation starting from the very first second all the way to the very end, and I'm going to be sharing short clips. If you want to watch the whole thing uninterrupted, I'll put links in the description below for that. Also, I just finished the resource for 7 days to better communication. If you're interested in that, link in the description. Boom. Don't forget to subscribe. Let's hop into the video.
So here we are on a Wednesday, and Chris Cuomo is sitting in my living room. Now, why is Chris Cuomo sitting in my living room, formerly of CNN? Well, I'd never met Chris Cuomo before today, and of course, for years, I was incredibly mean to Chris Cuomo on TV. Why? I can't really say now. But I'll say this. He was one of the very first people to call me completely out of the blue, no idea how he got my number, after I left my job last spring. And that began a series of conversations, very long conversations, in which I discovered that Chris Cuomo is a really interesting person. And though we disagree on some things, we don't disagree on everything at all. And I thought, wow, I wonder how many other people like Chris Cuomo are out there, people I've dismissed or mocked because we disagreed on some things, who actually, if you got to know them, you might learn something. So that might be a useful exercise. And so with that, a conversation with Chris Cuomo begins. Chris, thank you for coming.
Okay. Tucker is known for doing this with his personal YouTube channel. For instance, whenever we looked at Tucker talking with Putin and analyzed that conversation, he sets the groundwork. This saves us a little work because for every analysis video on this channel, we always look at the rhetorical situation. What is the task at hand? Something important to note is whenever you have a conversation, both people have their own task. This is Tucker Carlson's channel, and we don't get Chris Cuomo's intention yet. But later on, as we go further into the video, we're going to see what his intention of being here is as well.
So one of the reasons I think that you called me was because we'd had such similar lives, and you're one of the few people who kind of understand. And both of us spent decades in one world, were exiled from it. And I think the question is, like, what if we learn from this? You first.
I'm still trying to figure it out. And I knew it was important to reach out when you were going through your exit, let's call it. And because I knew the pain of it, and I knew the challenge of it. And everything is different, but I do believe that one of the lessons I've learned is you have to think about how other people are being affected by situations.
They started by connecting over commonality. We know the both of them, one was working at Fox and one was working at CNN. Tucker used to work at CNN, but for the most part, Tucker was at Fox and Cuomo was at CNN. And we know that both of them have very public disagreements. Yet they chose to start the conversation on a block of commonality. From the block of commonality, they can then talk about their differences, but they spend a lot of the first 10 minutes discussing what they have in common. This is really helpful, especially when you know that you have different opinions or different outlooks from somebody. If you can start on the same block of commonality, build some trust with them, and then that trust will cover you as you get into more contentious subjects.
It's all gotten so far removed from humanity that the idea that, I don't like that Tucker Carlson takes a bite out of my ass on his show on a regular basis.
I think you have a good reason not to like me. I think that would be fair.
But that means that this is not somebody who you should care about as a human being. And I feel like our culture isn't working anymore, that everybody retreats with their own. And as a result, everybody is against one another for the same kinds of reasons. And it's not working. And if it's not working, then why aren't we trying something different? Why wouldn't I reach out to somebody who has a family who has a following and is dealing with a hard time to see if I can help.
So this is his intention. Now we get to know why Chris made the call. And Chris made the call because he believes oftentimes people silo themselves. And this is definitely true with political parties. There's two different aisles, and we either pick the left side or we pick the right side. And we feel like any affiliation across the aisle is bad. It's immoral. Yet what this leads to is not that block of commonality. Rather, it leads to us living lives thinking we know a lot about the people on the other aisle, yet really we don't. And it's the curse of no interaction. I also want to point that Tucker said, you had every reason not to like me. So within the first 2 minutes of the conversation, they have already addressed why they're there, the goal at hand, their piece of commonality that they can share, and then they're addressing the contention with humor. And you see and hear Tucker laugh a lot. I'll show you a few clips.
And Tucker has crossed that line. And I will say, says
Look at that right there.
Tucker has crossed that line.
It's a goofy sense of humor.
But
it was a big deal, though. Not you.
Yeah, million people died.
Right. But it was such a big deal because it changed things. One.
And you can see here with the Tucker laugh, they're both pretty comfortable. They're both leaning back in their chairs. Both of them are casual. Cuomo's got the blue jeans on. I'll show you one last video.
Done and what I had not done. And if I were going to come back, because, you're tougher than I am. Not physically. I would literally twist you like a bandit. But
this is a good example of the conversation as well. The sentiment, the humor, the light jest to it. They're navigating these topics. Tucker's cracking up here. Chris has a smile. He's leaning over. He's hitting him on the leg. And in the beginning, they laugh a lot, and they also take some time to support one another. For instance, they come into agreement.
Million people died.
Right. But it was such a big deal because it changed things. One, Congress would never own violence again.
No.
They would never vote. As the Constitution demands.
Oh, yeah.
They gave it to presidents.
Oh,
and
yeah.
right and left. And anyone's going to take the power, right? You're in the power game. You're president. You want to give me power as Congress? I'll take it. And we saw it with Bush. We saw it with Clinton. We saw it with Bush. We saw it with Obama. They all take the power.
But you give up the power, it's like...
You'll never get it back. And they don't want it back.
And they also spend a lot of time here with their turn taking, going back and forth, agreeing with one another, endorsing one another's opinions. Many people who are going to watch this weren't expecting that. They were expecting hard-nosed debates. But that oftentimes isn't the best way to navigate conversation, especially when you're coming from two different political or viewpoints. Oftentimes the best way to navigate it is by using levity, by using humor, and then starting off with what you view connected. As we go a bit further into the conversation, we see things change. We start to see shields being lowered and particularly people being vulnerable.
And, we can go through different stuff that I say, that you say, because I still want to know why you came after me as much as you did.
Because I'm a dick, probably. Because it was easy. Because I don't like CNN, and I really mean that in my heart of hearts. I really just don't.
But why me?
I don't know.
How can you not know? It was so intentional. It was so frequent.
Because people kept sending me videos from Instagram.
You.
It was me.
It was you.
Okay, this is important, right? Because Cuomo is presenting the question, why me? And you can tell that this is actually irritating him. Like, this is bothering him. He says, I still want to know why me. So he's been thinking about it. He's not even with CNN anymore. He's with News Nation now, but he's still wondering, why did Tucker Carlson go after me? And Tucker, in Tucker faction, doesn't have a big answer. He's like, I don't know. And honestly, I hate CNN. And I saw some funny videos of you. And Tucker does something that I thought was really important, but he breaks the moment with humor. I know that Chris Cuomo, whenever he presented it, Tucker starts laughing. But then Chris also looks offset to one of Tucker's producers and is like, hey, you were the guy who did it. And it's bringing other people in, and it's making this contentious moment a little less contentious, yet they're still able to proceed and to navigate this multiple year-long disagreement and public foes. And what do we do about this now that we're no longer working with conflicting news agencies? How can we proceed as friends? But you can tell this is actually really getting at Chris Cuomo. He mentions it for the first time here, but then several times throughout the interview, he keeps going back to it.
You loved it and it worked for you.
But I will say this.
And my in-laws watch you. Do you know how hard it is to deal with having your in-laws enjoy a joke that makes you want to, do bad things that are going to cost you civil litigation money?
This part cracked me up because Tucker's having the time of his life. But Chris is still curious. He's still trying to know. And he makes it relatable. And I love what he does here because he says, do you know how hard it is when your in-laws or my in-laws support the person who's attacking me? And both of them say, hey, I wanted to do something bad to you. And then Tucker.
And somebody did say, Chris Cuomo is a lot bigger than you. Maybe you should be careful. I just couldn't, I have weaknesses. I will say I don't.
And Tucker lays down his hand and says, yep, I shouldn't have done it. I struggle with the weakness in the flesh, particularly with mockery. Despite them being from different news agencies and being public enemies, they're coming together and saying, hey, we're one and the same. What you were feeling, I was feeling. I don't know why I did it. I probably shouldn't have done it, but I did do it. But collectively, I'm glad we get together and have this conversation.
But I'm watching your stuff now. I watched a lot of your stuff for this. And it's a different vibe, Tucker. I mean, look, if we had been in more contact before you did the Putin interview, I would have told you, you got to check some boxes with this guy. I get why you're going to say, I'm like.
And this starts the third quarter of the conversation. The first quarter was their commonality, saying they both got ousted. The second quarter was addressing the elephant in the room, addressing their public feud, the why behind it. And then now they start to address the differences and how they both operate and really navigating. For instance, Cuomo says, if I were to talk to you before the Putin interview, I would have had you do it differently. To which Tucker's going to respond and say, listen, a lot of people are telling me to do it differently. I did it my way to follow my personal convictions. So this third quarter is really the majority of the conversation, and it's then discussing their differences. And as the conversation comes to an end, you can really tell that Chris Cuomo is using this conversation to give him closure over how he left CNN. And he views Tucker as someone who can understand it. Because Tucker was in a similar but different spot at Fox News. You can watch him process.
And when it was working for them, I was the man. And they couldn't get enough of it.
You were the highest rated show.
Right. Not even close. I was the number one show. But they
can't fire you if you've got the number one show.
Oh, yes, they can.
Are you serious?
Yeah, like this. And out you go.
Wow.
And look,
wow.
It's a tough.
Keep that in mind.
It's a tough business. I understand that. And here's what I tell myself now. And I think this is important for our audiences also. This is what I signed up for. The really, really impressive ability you have to separate yourself from the impressions of you. I don't have that. That's good. I say that, but I don't have it the way you do. I now tell myself this, and this is what keeps my hands like this instead of like this. I signed up for this. You want to be forward-facing? No, you want to be in the media?
No, that's true.
You want to have the platform? You want people to listen to what you say? Then you're going to have to listen to what they say. And if they don't like you, you have to take it. And that's what you signed up for. If you don't like it, that's fine. Leave. Go work somewhere else. Go start.
And this is his closure moment. He's saying, it's been really hard for me, but I signed up for it. And that's how he's viewing this whole entire process. And Tucker here switches up his act. Rather than interrupting or interjecting, he takes this moment and he sits back and he listens. And he even provides assurance. He provides confirmation. It's like call and response. Tucker says, yeah, that's true, right? Because he can obviously tell that Cuomo's processing right now, and he's doing it externally. He's verbally processing this real time.
I don't know who knew and who did what. I'm told things. I'm not going to repeat them because I can't prove them. But I don't think it was a one-man decision.
It never is. So, but when you did leave after 10 years as your highest rated show when you left.
I didn't leave. I was fired.
When you got shit canned, as you said. Did any of the other anchors call you to say, gosh, I got kind of shafted, I'm sorry to see you go, or?
No.
Why?
Because they were told things that weren't true.
This is one of my favorite moments of the interview, and the reason being is because we're actually addressing raw emotion. The question, he set up the scenario, when this happened, did this happen? And Chris Cuomo said no. And following that up with the question, why? Like, I don't get that. Why wouldn't someone stick up for you? To which he says, and you can tell that there's actual emotional pain there for him. He's like, they didn't want to risk themselves for me. And that's hard. That feels like betrayal.
Have you ever learned anything important from eating French toast in bed on vacation?
No. The easy moments don't yield that much.
So good. We are nearing the end of the conversation, and we are leaving out on a block of commonality. They both have a consensus. The hardest times are the times where we learn the most. And you can tell they're emotionally processing things a bit differently, but let's see how the conversation ends.
Anyway, I just want to thank you. That was like the most interesting conversation I've had in a long time, and I sincerely enjoyed it.
I believe in conversation.
Amen.
I appreciate an invitation to your
Thank
house.
you.
And the lines are open.
I'll be texting.
All right. I'll be telling you how much everybody hates me for this, because you won't be paying attention.
No, I won't at all.
You'll be laughing. I'll be crying. But I won't be. This was the right thing to do. Thank you, Tucker. Fuck that.
Thank you.
Okay. Perfect assessment, perfect encapsulation of the emotional moments here. Chris says, you'll be laughing, I'll be crying. He also says, hey, the lines are open. So they enter the conversation differently than the way they left. They enter the conversation having been public enemies, yet they leave the conversation being friends with open lines of contact for the future. One of the things we can learn here is it's really important to talk with people who are on the other side of the aisle, especially if we don't even know them. If we give ourselves a few hours to sit down and converse with them, we can learn a lot more, but we can also find commonality and take hope in what brings us together, the experiences that we all experience, especially if you both get ousted from a major news network. If you like communication content, be sure to subscribe to this channel. I do analysis videos, but I also talk about helpful communication concepts. In addition, I just finished 7 Days for Better Communication. That's free for you. The link is below in the description. Be sure to talk to those who have different opinions than you, different political outlooks, different motivations. It may be hard initially, but if you start by connecting over commonality, and if you use humor, you'll be able to address the tension a bit more easily. Without further ado, I'll see you next time.